a warm welcome, and thank you all for joining us today. Today, in our deep dive, Medical Cannabis at the Crossroads, what is next for 2026, we will talk about the latest developments, of course, in Germany. It's the proposed amendment to the MedCanG. And I know that Peter talked about it in his last deep dive in November 2025, but at this point the development was at an earlier stage. So we had some developments in the last weeks, and we want to talk about the proposed amendments and where do we stand in the legislative procedure, the current status of the government's draft, and some opinions of the political parties and experts, and what are the points which are criticized, and what possible alternatives could there be, and what legal impact would they have. And at the end, we will take a short look at the US, where they had a historical step when President Trump announced the rescheduling of medical cannabis. So we will take a close look what could this mean for Germany. The proposed amendments started in July 2025 when the Federal Ministry of Health proposed some changes to the Medical Cannabis Act, the MedCanG, because they observed a large mismatch between the increase of import on the one hand, and the prescriptions from statutory health patients, which are the most one in Germany, on the other hand. And so they concluded that there must be a high number of self-payers, which is unusual for Germany, and therefore there might be a potential misuse of cannabis prescriptions for non-medical purposes. And they think that it's most likely due to using telemedical platforms, which allows medical prescriptions without having a direct contact to physicians or pharmacists. And so they want to exclude this possible misuse of lifestyle prescriptions and limit access to patients with a medical need for cannabis treatments. And the solution they suggest is, in fact, to prohibit prescriptions via telemedicine, only in very, very, very restricted cases, and mail order distributions shouldn't be possible anymore. So where are we right now? This was the draft in July, and thereafter there was a statement from the Bundesrat. The Bundesrat, they proposed some more strict changes, but it's not a topic for this deep dive. It would be too much, and we don't think that they will will be implemented into the proposed draft right now. In case this would be the case in the next weeks or months, then we will make another deep dive about this issue and this topic. And this draft was introduced to the Federal Bundestag, by the federal government in December, and then there was a first reading. It's the start of the legislative period, and then there was an expert hearing in mid of January at Bundestag's Health Committee. And now we are in the phase where there are further discussions in the Bundestag's committees, and thereafter there will be a second and a third reading before the Bundestag would vote on the MedCanG amendment, and then there would be the publication and entry into force. So the state where are we right now is this state where it's most likely that changes will happen. So let's jump to what the government's draft proposes. So there's one thing, how cannabis can be prescribed. They want to change the section 3 of the MedCanG so that cannabis flowers may only be prescribed after personal contact between the prescribing physician and the patient, either in the doctor's office or during a home visit. Repeat prescriptions require personal contact within last 4 quarters, and it must be it could be a personal contact with another physician, but it has to be in the same medical practice. This is now new to the version which we had in July. And there's also now a clarification that cannabis may only be prescribed if there is a medical reason, but that's in fact not new one, because there must be a medical reason for prescribing any medication. The second thing is how cannabis prescriptions can be redeemed. And in section 3, there, with regard to cannabis flowers, their mail order distribution shall not be permitted anymore. There is a fun fact, because in the former draft, a violation of this stipulation would have been punishable. But now there is I think it's probably an oversight, but due to the wording, a violation wouldn't be punishable right now. So, but it is to be expected that this will be corrected in the coming weeks when the process goes further. The use of cannabis for medical scientific purposes has also been changed. So it should only be used for clinical studies. So that's more strict than medical scientific purposes. Yeah, there's different positions of the Bundestag's political parties. The SPD was involved in when the MedCanG comes into force, and the Conservatives, CDU and CSU, they proposed this first draft amendment by Ministry of Health, and they say it should be adopted as it is. Sure. But the SPD said that the draft goes too far and needs significant review to safeguard patients' interests while excluding abuse. And that the treatment by video call and mail order distribution of cannabis should remain possible. There are other parties. There are some, they say it shouldn't be at all MedCanG, so it should be revoked. But that's the most important 2 parties, because if SPD and CDU, CSU must find a solution, and so that these changes can be come into force. There was the expert hearing before the Health Committee in January, where different kind of people had the opportunity to speak and to tell what they think about the proposed amendments and what the issues could be. Yeah, in fact, there were 2 sides: the supporters for stricter regime and the ones who criticized the draft amendment and said there must be a more liberal approach. So, the Bundesärztekammer, the Federal Chamber of Doctors, said it should be stricter. Also, the German Head Office of Matters of Addiction, the Association of German Cannabis Patients, and in the circle of criticism, there was for sure the cannabis industry and also an independent medical researcher. The most points which are criticized is that these proposed amendments go far beyond what is necessary to achieve the goals. Because Germany has already a very comprehensive legal framework. There's, on the one hand, the German Civil Code and the Model Professional Code for Physicians, which ensures that patients are properly informed and that everything is documented. For instance, there is Section 7 of the Model Professional Code for Physicians, and it permits exclusive telemedical consultation only if medically justifiable and with full documentation. So, in fact, the treatment based solely on questionnaires is already excluded for doctors which work in Germany, and this was a main point criticized by the Ministry of Health, because due to the questionnaires, there could be no contact between the patient and the doctor when receiving a prescription over telemedical platforms. So, from our point of view, the problem lies in cross-border telemedicine, because the treatment contracts are subject to the respective laws of the respective country where the doctor is working. So the draft law does not target this business model. And a complete ban would make access to medical cannabis therapy greatly complicated, in particular for many serious ill or rural patients. Yeah, if they can't leave the bed and they can't go to the doctor, or the doctor can't come because it's in a rural area, there aren't so many doctors in Germany, so this could be an issue. The ban on mail order sales is also unjustified, because we have already a regulation in the pharmacy operating regulations. It's something which applies to the pharmacies, and it already says shipping may not take place if there is a need for information or advice that cannot be provided by means other than personal information or advice from a pharmacist. But it's not evident why this obligation cannot be met by telephone. So why you have to go to the pharmacy to inform yourself, and why this can't be done by telephone. So a complete ban, from our point of view, would again disadvantage patients with restricted mobility and rural pharmacies. And not all pharmacies do have any kind of cannabis. The delivery services of local pharmacies shall be possible, but this means there must be a member from the pharmacy bringing the respective medication, and it's only possible in a very restricted area around the pharmacy. And such a service cannot replace mail order options. So we ask ourselves, what could there be for alternative solutions? The telemedical treatment should explicitly allowed where the physician considers it to be appropriate in the individual case. Why? Because it is standard right now in Germany. So this doesn't have to be more strict, and each doctor can say, in this case, it's possible to do the treatment via telemedical means. And we would also propose that medical cannabis platforms should be subject to the requirement of obtaining a cannabis authorization pursuant to Section 4 MedCanG. Why? Because if they have to apply for an authorization, the authorities can prove whether they apply to German law, and the operators of platform could only be German companies. So it would be much more easier to make sure that the German law is adhered to. And at least require pharmacies to verify platform prescriptions as to whether the platform holds a valid MedCanG authorization, because in this case it could be verified that the doctors which are working for that platform or with that platform adhere to German law. So these methods would strengthen supervision, transparency, and accountability across the medical cannabis supply chain, and that without restriction patient access. what would be the legal and practical impact of those alternative suggestions? Yeah, at first, telemedicine platforms would remain an important pillar of the cannabis healthcare system, and patients would still be able to access medical cannabis treatment from home, but only in the cases where the doctor can verify that, ensure that this is manageable in this case. And the telemedicine platforms serving German patients would be located in Germany, and the cooperating doctors would have to abide by German medical professional standards. The video consultations would become the new normal for telemedicine, not just the questionnaires. And prescriptions based solely on questionnaires would no longer be issued. Platforms could not circumvent the video consultation requirements through EU doctors, as their prescriptions would then not be accepted in German pharmacies. And there would be no impact on access to medical cannabis through mail order delivery by specialized pharmacies, in case the pharmacies can provide information over means of, for example, telephone. So now we would like to take a close look, brief look to the United States. In the United States, the Controlled Substance Act classifies drugs into schedules based on medical use, abuse potential, and safety under medical supervision. And Donald Trump, the executive order by Donald Trump in December 2024 announced the rescheduling from cannabis from Schedule 1, it's the highest restriction level, to Schedule 3. And this means that it's a formal federal recognition of medical value. It's reduced regulatory and research hurdles. There was an announcement of a Medicare CBD pilot program. It abolishes tax disadvantages for cannabis companies. But the Drug Enforcement Administration must formally amend the drug schedules under the Controlled Substance Act. So right now it's classified as in Schedule 1, but once it's formally amended, then it will be Schedule 3. So what impact could have this rescheduling in Germany? At first it would be important for the whole discussion and support a more balanced cannabis regulation, also on an international level. The expanded US research access could significantly increase high-quality clinical data on cannabis medical use, which is really rare. And in the medium and long term, there could be some FDA-supported medical cannabis products manufactured in the United States, and they could enter the German market, provided that there are some preconditions are fulfilled. In summary, we have the draft federal government's law, and it's very similar to the first version. Right now, it's the time where the most changes could be made. So we will see in the next weeks and months in which direction the draft will develop. And with regard to the United States, I think the year 2026 will be an important year for the medical cannabis industry, not only in Germany, but also in the US. Thank you.